great intro. See, just got rid of that. There was the awkward pause at the end, but I pulled off it straight away. So already, MAFFS starting. We're good. We're flying. We're having a Daniel Arzani start to our game. Joe, how are you, mate? How's everything going in Melbourne?
Daniel Arzani start to my game. Does that mean I've been underperforming or I'm not as effective as I usually am? What do you mean by that?
Be honest, mate, it's a lot of questions for me early. I don't know. What I mean by that is I feel like Daniel Arzani is a very good player. I think he was the most exciting player in the game today. And he had two assists.
You think Daniel Arzani played well tonight, Stoll? Daniel Arzani played well tonight? I mean, if you watch the game, you wouldn't be talking about Daniel Arzani.
What are we talking about, Ryan?
I guess the narrative's Stoll.
The narrative is the narrative. I feel like it's nice of Popper to mention the narrative because there is no narrative anymore in the A-League. There isn't enough coverage to create a narrative. Really, it's like this pod, a few other pods, and the narrative is really like, can a horse come on for a late corner? Really, I don't know what Popper was talking about the narrative, but it was strange. It was very funny that Arzani changed the game, 2 assists for Daniel De Silva to give Victory a much-needed win. They were massively under pressure. But Josh, how did you see the whole Daniel Arzani narrative Popper gate? Is it a gate or is it just a kerfuffle?
I think it's a gate, actually, given the traction it got from Victory fans who were using it as the sort of proxy for their frustrations with Tony Popovich's coaching. I think it qualifies as Arzani gate. And the ultimate FU was that after his halftime introduction, not only was Daniel Arzani outstanding tonight, it felt like the game hadn't started until he came on.
100%.
He was unbelievable. He was everywhere. I feel like there's a certain subset of football fans who just don't like the way he carries himself or would confusingly prefer their team to not generate a chance as opposed to miss one. But Daniel Arzani was running the show. He was desperately chasing that game and eventually rewarded with 2 assists. So, yeah, I thought he was outstanding tonight. And I thought he, if it was designed as such, that press conference gave him whatever pump up he needed.
5 chances created, 2 big chances created, 24 accurate passes. He was amazing when he came on for his 45 minutes. Teo, do you think, we've talked about this before on the show, it's really important to claim credit even when you don't deserve it. Do you think Tony Popovich will say, yep, this is what I did. You know, sometimes you got to fire him up. Sometimes you got to stick a rocker up him. And that's the response that we get.
Oh, no, I'm going to claim credit where we absolutely do deserve it. This podcast is so far ahead of the curve because we are trying to find the fun in Australian football. And we are currently starting to be overrun by coaches and fans that seem to actively resent following their teams and aren't enjoying themselves. The MAFFS edict is fast becoming a very good and a very necessary one to live by the longer this season goes on.
So, there's talk of, Canberra coming in to the A-League. It looks like it's going to happen soon. And always there's talk when a new team comes in that there needs to be an identity behind the team, even though it's a made-up team that hasn't existed ever before. But anyway, the team needs to create and build an identity. Don't you think that it's time that one team, or maybe it's time that we own a team and take them up the non-existent Australian football pyramid, a MAFFS team, a team purely based on fun, players signed on fun, coaches, fun, fans, fun, everything towards fun, horses at the ready, everything we've talked about, ashtrays, ashtray trophies, everything that we have talked about on this show, culminating in one team that is a dominant force in not only Australian football, but Asian, world football. Joe, what say you?
I love it. I think Teo might need to sell his Manly mansion to fund it, which I don't know if he's ready to let that baby go. But I think it's a great idea. And sorry for your shaky head there, Teo. I think if we were to have it already, I think Perth are pretty close, don't you think? They must be the closest reincarnation of a MAFFS-made team I've ever seen.
It's funny you say that because my first thought was the Mariners, actually. I reckon the Mariners might be... it obviously helps when they're winning. But I also think that even when they were a bad team, at least they were breaking records and they were noteworthily bad as opposed to aggravatingly, frustratingly bad or, actively winding up their fans, which is, I think, how Victory had been feeling over the last 7 weeks as they were looking for that first win in a long time. But, Perth's a good shout, especially given the state of the shed and the mini shed, the underage shed last Saturday. But also... I think Mariners are up there. We have some MAFFS teams. Bringing one through the pyramid style is not the worst idea, but if you started even close to the top of a state pyramid, you're still looking at like 5 or 6 years of how fun can it be for a very long period of time?
Josh, in true MAFFS style, you've set up a rival podcast. Almost you're cheating on us with another podcast. It's a podcast that is kind of based on NPL football in Victoria. I do think it should be called Make Victorian Football Fun Society, and you should continue the offshoot. But tell us the details of that podcast, but also tell us who is the most MAFFS team in NPL Victoria.
It's a great question.
Most MAFFS team in Victoria. Well, in some ways, it's Dandenong Thunder because they are the league's kind of drama club. They sacked their coach in the off-season. He took all of their players to a club up the road, and they had 3 players left over when the new coach came back in. And then that subsequent new coach resigned about a week or 2 before the start of the season, and they had to get a third coach who then signed a whole raft of new players. So I feel like Dandy Thunder are good value just for they're sort of a soap opera club. I mean, it's not exactly the same thing. Avondale are good fun on the pitch because their coach just plays ridiculous, like pedal to the floor attacking football all the time. They won their first game of the season 4-3. And they've scored the most goals in a season in Victorian football history, I believe. It's right up there anyway. So, there's a few teams in there who are extremely MAFFSy. Even Bulleen on a Monday night at the Veneto Club, you never know what you're going to get. They had relegation form for half a season last year, and then they had championship form for the second half of the year. It was like 2 wins from 13 and then like 10 wins. It's ridiculous. So, there's a few teams who fit the bill.
It's funny you say that, though, because I kind of see NPL level where there is relegation as kind of the serious football where it is sheep stations every week, and being a fun team or a carefree team that's happy-go-lucky isn't really possible in such an environment. And one thing I was pondering as Carl Viet increasingly falls out of love with the idea of bringing through young players and potentially, nurturing Nestor Irankunda's final 6 months in the Australian game, he actually strikes me as someone who, instead of having the young players sold out from under him at a development club, as the ideal coach for the NPL, where you assemble the strongest possible team at all costs and you treat every 3 points like it is life and death. And I guess there's that kind of irony of there are minimal consequences for not winning in the A-League, especially if you're at a club whose philosophy is now sell for profit and develop youth, whereas he actually seems like someone who is yearning for the idea of living and dying for the 3 points at the Thunderdome or at the Reggio Calabria club every weekend.
Edmund, our young Vayujip, says, let's have the A-Liga version of Inter Miami. Inter Miami, fun on paper, not so fun in reality. If you've ever seen them kind of play, like unless Messi's like taking free kicks, it's kind of a bit of a terrible team. And as the people of South Korea and Hong Kong found out, sometimes Messi doesn't even show up. Remember there was rumors that the A-League was going to bring out Inter Miami for, friendly with the A-League All-Stars. Can you imagine if we brought out Inter Miami and Messi was injured, which he would have been at this time, and unable to play? Oh my God. In the same week that Taylor Swift was coming out, that would have been hilarious to see. Guido says, watching live so much better than the podcast. Yes, I believe so. If you are listening to this podcast, tune in live when we go live every week. Nick DeBarno throwing some shade. Josh starting the podcast in quotation marks when Lockie and I signed him in the off season. What say you, Josh?
No, that is absolutely true. I chose not to nitpick you on the details and facts, but that is in fact the case. Lockie and Nick were doing the pod all through last season before my my joining.
So in a way, because if this pod was existing before MAFFS, are we copying them? Were they the originals and we have taken it from them?
Very possibly so. Very possibly so. I mean, speaking of A-League into Miami, I mean, we sort of have already had that. We've had a bunch of teams who've signed, ridiculously past their prime players to play walking football. Obviously with an A-League budget. So it's, Massimo Macaroni at John Aloisi's Brisbane Roar, or Ale Diamante
Good
in
match.
the first season of Western United. I mean, Western United were a team of retirees the first 6 months and under Marco Redan, and then they abandoned that strategy as soon as summer hit. So they had Ersin Gulam and Scott McDonald and all these guys. They they were playing walking pace football before it was cool. And then when it was hot, they quickly rethought that strategy.
Radio Dub, who I'm pretty sure I know who is the person behind that account, says, "Why does Josh look like a warden speaking to his 3 prisoners?" I mean, pretty harsh, on the 3 of us. But Josh, look, I just say it's great. It's great that you have audio properly this week, because our live throw to you last week was one of the worst bits of broadcasting ever produced in Australian football, which is saying something.
Yeah, upon listening back to it, it was worse than I'd anticipated, which probably made it almost so bad it's good, whereas, the segment would have just been bad otherwise. So I was thankful for it.
This has blown my cover on being in the Manly Supermax as opposed to the Manly Mansion.
I think as soon as you left us last week, Josh, I said it sounded like you were coming to us from a prison. So it's nice that you've stepped it up to the warden this week.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, hey, by the way, speaking of just ideas, that's a great idea for a movie.
Prison match.
Ex-prisoner who becomes the warden, who takes over, right? I mean, we talked about rising up the pyramid. Is there any pyramid that you can rise up more than going from prisoner?
Are you suggesting pro-rel for prisons, Nick?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, maybe you start in like maximum and then you work your way up to minimum. I think that's actually how it works. Maybe our prison system has pro relegation, but our football system does not. That's a disgrace. Call in now. Let us know your thoughts. Dale has said, your shit when you concede 2 injury time goals to a centre back. I believe he is referring to Western United, not to my 7-a-side team, which does that on the reg. No, that's a lie. We actually won the championship this year. Come on, Inter America. But yeah, rough way for Western United, who looked good for parts of the game. Joe, we're getting back onto this game tonight. How did you see it all unfold?
They did. They really did. And I don't know about you guys, but I think towards the end there, and I know there were a few injuries, there were a few elbows flying around, but I never like when a team goes a little bit too early on the time wasting and the slowing down of the game. It's okay to do it as long as you're pushing forward, but I think they ran out of energy and they stopped pushing forward at that stage. So the pressure was mounting and mounting. And victory, I credit to them because they took it up to Western United. And yeah, you could almost feel the point of where victory flicked the switch and Western United were just not pushing forward anymore. And I think that was kind of the turning point of the match.
Can I just say what I found fun is a lot of the flat earthers that don't really believe any statistics should apply to football were absolutely feasting on the idea that victory had this massive XG. I think it was at about 1.7 or 1.8 before those last 2 goals, and it was over 2 to 0.2 by the end of the game. But I think a lot of people were enjoying the fact that the numbers were not adding up, and Wellington continue to defy their underlying numbers. But Josh, was it you who showed us the XG table that suggested Wellington wouldn't even be in the top 6 if the table was sorted by XG differential? And yet it's almost like the statistical gods swooped down from numbers heaven and just sprinkled a little bit of fairy dust on that stoppage time period. And basically, the game regressed to the mean at the last possible opportunity. I found that fun. I like having a clock and a scoreboard and numbers, and it's all about using those stats to color the context. It doesn't automatically mean one thing or another. I think a little bit like how everyone thought VAR would automatically solve all refereeing mistakes. The same people think that XG somehow explains who should win and who doesn't. It's willfully misunderstanding in order to out yourself as being massively behind the curve.
Hey, really good comment coming in from Joe K on this. XG isn't fun, but underperforming XG is. That is 100% correct. Massively underperforming XG, where you're creating thousands of chances yet not scoring to the great frustration, is one of the great fun things to see. I'll tell you what is one of the all-time great fun things to see. Daniel Pena. Not only is he one of the all-time, I think he's in like MAFFS Hall of Fame territory because of his time. When you're a fun player on bad teams, your fun is even more heightened because it can be a bit of a struggle to watch. Western United these days can be a bit of a struggle to watch the Newcastle Jets back in the day. But Pena just gives you that little bit of sauce that makes you want to swallow what is not the nicest burger. Josh, what did you make of not only his goal, but his celebration and his subsequent injury from the celebration?
Well, Joe, you were pointing out that Pena did about 5 celebrations. It wasn't just one goal celebration.
Yeah, so we had the wheel away. That was the first one. It was a beautiful goal, by the way. Really nice finish.
Really
the wheel
nice.
away was the first one. Then he tapped the badge. He kissed the badge, and then Pena jumped on the advertising boards, and this is where it all went wrong. That's celebration number 4 or 5 already, but the jump down was just so nasty, and you could see his ankle or his leg turning a bit. But that is fun. I want to see more celebrations, more goals, sure, but if you can cram all your celebrations into one, even better.
Yeah, he did the goggles as well, didn't he?
He did the
goggles. I think
of course.
after he got down and injured himself, he was pretending it was fine until he got back to the halfway line.
I think he pointed to the sky at one point. I'm not sure if that was a little prayer for his ankle, but yeah, it just kept rolling on and on.
That
how's the kissing the badge, by the way? For
did
Pena?
he do that?
He kissed the badge for Western United. When's the last time someone from Western United has kissed the badge for a goal celebration? I mean,
let us know.
I'm sure that ever since he was a kid growing up in Brasilia or coming through the Atletico Mineiro youth system, he dreamed of playing for the green and black of Tarnit. Far be it from me to cast aspersions on that. But Daniel Pena at Western United this season, it's kind of like when they cast your favorite comedian in a terrible Disney or DreamWorks movie that's very family friendly. Like he's only allowed to have the regulation amount of fun, and he's still fun. But it seems like, oh, okay, here we go, Daniel. Let's enough of that. Let's get back to the wholesome, scoreless draws.
Yeah, it feels like very Eddie Murphy kind of in the early 2000s in that kind of vibe. You know what? Just on the celebration injury, I love that celebration where someone kind of pretends to pull their hamstring and then starts to kind of end up doing a twerk. What I'd like to see is a bigger commitment to that. I'd like to see you do as many celebrations as you can, finish with a kind of an injury, but it's a fake one. Get the stretcher out, get the thing out. Then as they're just about to pull you off, flip off the stretcher, flip your body off, then start dancing again. Maybe this has taken 5 minutes.
The worm.
Who cares? Yeah, do the worm back to the halfway line. This would be, okay, even a better one. Just, can you go from the worm, from the corner flag, all the way to the halfway line? Would the ref start the game, or would they say, look, he's getting back. He's just getting back in his own way? I mean, I don't know. Is there a time limit on celebrations? I think we saw it at the Asian Cup, didn't we?
I'm not sure. I almost thought, because when he got injured, he went down for a little bit. They restarted a game and he went down again. He could have carried on the celebration then. He could have kept going. Imagine Victory kicking the ball out of play and Pena just doing a bit of a shimmy or a worm to start things up again.
Simon said, need more props in celebrations like that magic trick in the Asian Cup. Yeah, maybe you need to already come out with the crutches. Maybe you need to have someone like off to the side with crutches so you can, or a wheelchair, just get straight into a wheelchair, start doing wheelies across the pitch. There's many options. I feel like we should be kind of celebration consultants for A-League players. Taylor?
Well, I know that a lot of San Francisco 49ers Super Bowl winners t-shirts will now have been distributed to far-flung corners of the earth in the name of goodwill. But I really do think the most fascinating top 10 countdown would be undershirts or prepared celebrations that never happened because the player didn't score. I feel as though, is it just manifest destiny that every player that had something prepared, like if Iniesta doesn't score the match-winning goal in the 2010 final, does his message to Danny Hake just never see the light of day? Like, I reckon it would be a great deep dive if there was some way of tapping into former players of what was the best celebration you had lined up. Maybe a partner had just given birth and you're waiting and waiting for a goal, and then all of a sudden you finally score a goal and you realize your kid's 2.5 and you've kind of missed your window for the rocking the baby celebration. Like, what are the great uncelebrated goals from people who had something choreographed and pre-planned?
Can you do a celebration for an assist? Like if you have a shirt underneath in a tribute, can you do it if you've assisted the goal? Or do you have to have scored? Like, what is the line that we're saying here? What do you reckon, Joe?
No, I mean, that would be funny. Imagine like a pre-assist or like the goal kick that leads to the knockdown header that leads to the assist. I mean, it can't go too far back. It has to be the scorer.
You win
I
a
think.
corner. You win a corner. You just lift the shirt to the crowd. Come on.
Hey, well,
Bosh.
I can't remember who it was now, but there was a Western United defender who won a goal kick with about 15, 20 minutes left, and he celebrated it like it was a goal tonight. Not sure if you can remember who it was. But imagine if he just whipped off the shirt.
It was the young guy. I remember that because I remember thinking, geez, a bit premature to be celebrating, goal kicks and all that kind of stuff. It was an odd time. Look, great comments coming in. Rob says via Twitter, that's surely the most fun game of the week. Boring for 95 minutes and then madness for 3 minutes. I don't know. I don't think it was boring for 95 minutes. I was thinking boring for 45 minutes for sure. That first 45 was a rough watch, but it came alive in the second half. And also this week, we found out that the A-League is the most has the most goals per game in all the leagues in all the world, which I gotta say, I feel like we got to take some credit for that, because MAFFS has always been about good attack, bad defense, lots of goals, lots of chaos. And the A-League is delivering, and nowhere is delivering more than Perth Glory. And we should talk about their 3-2 win over Brisbane, including Kolokovsky getting the winner against his old nemesis, Zadkovic. Josh, how did you see that?
Yeah, it was fun, wasn't it? I felt like the script was pre-written for that one. Well, we were speculating about it for weeks. As soon as Zadkovic got the Brisbane job, the return, and Stefan Kolokovsky just seemed written in the stars there. That game was a lot of fun. I particularly appreciated the whole Perth Glory squad basically like going up to the shed and they're basically like cupping their ears for the noise and the big pump up. That was just great gas. I really enjoyed that. What was missing though was a camera shot back to a really salty Ruben Zadkovic, like crossing his arms in the dugout. Like I feel like a meaner director would have said, we need the Zadkovic reaction shot on the winner here. Otherwise,
but I would have had Zadkovic and Kolokovsky split cam for the whole broadcast and just followed that kind of rivalry around. That would have been incredible. But yeah, it's amazing as well, because this was obviously the week that the new owners got announced. And I don't think it was any, coincidence that we dubbed them the most fun team in what is the most fun league. And the owners came in. The owners were like, all right, these guys are right. MAFFS keeps saying, they're always on the ball. They're saying Daniel Pena's so much fun. He's scoring. They're big Daniel Arzani fans. He's getting double assists. Perth, what are they saying about them? They say they're the funnest team in the league. All right, let's spend the big bucks. And Taya, you commentate a lot of games for Perth.
Including the one in question.
Yes. Do you think that your dulcet tones really were the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of these owners getting the money out of their pocket?
Well, it's funny because I think in the interests of variety, you're going to have on the next two Perth home games, Ben Homer and then Simon Hill when they play Wanderers. So it'll be Homer this weekend for the game against Wellington, where they're expecting a crowd of over 10,000, by the way, which is a real credit to Perth. Wow. And it just goes to show that word of mouth has got around. I feel as though in the WA media market, you've got the Perth Wildcats, you've got West Coast pre-season, to a lesser extent Fremantle, and it's really hard for the Glory to get that cut through, but the football community has kind of done its own heavy lifting on bringing fans to the stadium, because this team is just fun to watch. And it's funny that I did see the headline in News Corp papers that Adam Taggart was described as the forgotten man of Australian football with regards to his Socceroos recall. Well, he's only forgotten if your bedtime's before 10 p.m. because anyone who stays up for the Perth nightcap would have known that Adam Taggart was well and truly still in good Socceroos form and has been for, probably left it just a little bit too late for the Asian Cup, and Fornaroli was in too good form. And if you were picking one of Stamatolopoulos, Fornaroli or Taggart, I think Bruno was the right call. But for our next round of qualifiers, I also think Taggart is the right call. And then, depending on which overseas strikers that they take, Stamatolopoulos might squeak into the last spot in the squad or not. But look, Perth have been great fun and great entertainment. And that Western Sydney Wanderers game is the 10 bold feature game as well in a couple of weeks' time. That could be for 6th. Like that could be Perth
Mm.
within mathematical striking range to take Wanderers or someone else's spot in the top 6. So they're going to be a box office team for the next couple of weeks. And the new owners, I'm sure they've got reasonable plans to build them. And I think anytime you YouTube search what Perth used to look like at the end of that NSL and the crowds they were getting and the atmosphere that was created, the good times can come back, and hopefully it's not too far away.
I was going to say on Ross Peligra, he is a property development tycoon, and there's a lot of brands there with the A-League, because you think the amount of real estate agents playing in this league, he's got his pick of the bunch. I mean, George Blackwood, get on the phone. Like, he could be the next Perth Glory signing.
Well, yeah, as we've seen, like player coaches be a thing in football. Has player / estate agent? Saturday morning you're doing the inspections. Saturday night you're banging in the goals. Maybe that's the future at Perth. But also, excitingly, there is the owners also own Catania in, I think it's Serie C or Serie D. I think. Where are we?
No, third tier. It's amazing you say that, Stoll. There was a great thread on Reddit asking about Catania and what the standard of Serie C is. And someone described it as the top teams are good enough for the A-League and the worst teams are NPL Tasmania, because it's 60 teams across 3 different divisions. And I just thought, how fascinating would that be if we just went full scrambles and we had 60 teams across 3 divisions? Forget the national second division. I want the Serie C-ification of Australian football, where we have 3 teams, 3 divisions of 20. Our top flight is 60 teams, and we literally do have A-League men's teams playing NPL Tasmania teams, apparently the same way it is in the 3rd tier in Italy.
I believe in Spain, it's actually 4 groups of 20 or 5 groups of 20. So it is ridiculous to try and get from what is essentially the 3rd division is also the 7th division. And that's kind of hard to decipher when a team is 3rd division to get up into La Liga 2. But yeah, it is pretty amazing. Questions coming in from John. Thoughts on Tony Sage's Facebook meltdown new owner? Which MAFFS host, if they left, would do this? One thing I got to say, big boomer energy to have a meltdown on Facebook comments. Like, really, Tony Sage showing that maybe the world has moved on from him, that he decided the best way to get my point across is the comment section in Facebook, which is, where all great debate happens, as we all know. But Joe, if we were to kick you off the team, how would you respond?
Well,
which on which platform would you voice your objections?
And the bad news, Joe, is this is actually a soft launch. We're conditioning you for what's coming down the road.
Yeah, great. Good. All right. Well, let me think this through. If I go to Reddit, I know Teo will see it, so I have to avoid him there. Josh, I know you're big on Strava. You're running at the moment, so I have to avoid there. Stoll, I'm not sure what the Hinge platform is in Barcelona, but I have to stay off there as well. Maybe I'll have to be like Durbano, who's in the comments of our StreamYard having a go at Josh for saying that he started the podcast.
Yeah, maybe
look, I'm not too sure. There's plenty of options for me, though. There's plenty of options.
I tell you what, I reckon it actually helped the ratings if we had a bit of beef. I mean, obviously we just make it all
We blew up.
Yeah, if we just had like rival pods going for a while. Tabano, if you want to just slam us on the next Make Victorian Football Fun pod, that'd be great. We can kind of get this rivalry going, and people can pick sides and and it's the great Jay-Z and Nas, what they did back in the early 2000s to help sell albums. Joseph says, how to make Australian football fun, introduce a Serie C promotion playoff format. It is bonkers. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe that's what we need to get into the 2nd division, this kind of thing. Radio Dub is going straight for the jugular. Wants to know who would win in a cage match, Josh versus Nick. Which Nick are you referring to?
Question.
I think it's Josh versus Dubano with Lockie Flanagan as the special guest referee. Just have a triple treat of betrayal across the board.
I mean, have you ever played football in a cage? It's not as fun as it looks on FIFA Street 2. I got to say that. There's a place in inner city Sydney where you can play in a cage, and I just we talk about a lot of things that make Australian football fun. Hell in a Cell? Yeah, not Hell in the Cell, to be honest.
Not Hell in a Cell. That's disappointing.
It's kind of never ending it's good that the ball goes out of play in football. It gives you a rest. When the ball just never goes out and it's constantly in play, people think, "Oh, that's so much fun." No. It's important.
So you were
Yeah,
saying
I
my plan to buy an abandoned tanker and just set it up in Port Phillip Bay and then get Eric Cantona to host cage matches of football is not necessarily the greatest business plan going around.
It does make me think that. Oh, you know what we should do? Talk about A-League marketing. We should just redo the Nike cage football ad with A-League teams. That'd be amazing. I mean, God, I don't know how much we spent on.
No, I do think there's like that nostalgia retro to tap into would be phenomenal. I do wonder what sort of whether you're paying a homage or there is still some sort of intellectual property ripoff, and also who's Australia's Cantona? Is that Bosnich who's got the microphone? That's a goal, you know.
Yes, I think it probably is. It's probably either Boz, Miron, maybe Diamante. Really good question. Who is Australian football's Cantor? Lubo Milicevic is
That's a good
potentially
one. That's a very good
potentially
shout.
another one. You need someone who is a bit because Cantona, not only was he an amazing footballer, just since he's retired, he's such a character. He's such a kind of unique, we all remember his speech kind of thing. Who is most capable of doing that and has the charisma to kind of hold that? Very interesting question. Let us know in the comments who is Australian football's Cantona. Someone has asked, Torres has asked, is Nick, I think he's referring to me, starting a Making Barcelona Football Fun podcast? Look, be a pretty short podcast at the moment. It's a rough time. Be a lot of focus on the women's team, that's for sure. Look, guys, it's 31 minutes into the show. We need to start the show as we always do. What made Australian football fun for you this week, Joe Simon?
Well, look, I think we've already spoken about Pena long enough because that was mine. I'm sure it was probably a lot of ours here. But there was a question I heard midweek, and it was, I'm not sure if, people are, Stoll, you talk about all the time the millions of downloads that we get, but I'm not sure if more people have been listening because I heard a journo ask, I think it was Italiano, if any of his players were in the WWE, who would be the best fighter? Now, if that's not a MAFFSy question, I don't know what is. And I love that he took it on as well. He said, the first thing he said, that's a very good question. I'm not sure if it's a very good question, but it's a fun question. And I'm glad it got asked, and I'm glad he had some fun with it as well.
Yeah, I mean, we need, look, we have to take responsibility as well as people in the media. We want our coaches to be more fun. We want our games to be more fun. We want our fans to be more fun. We need the questions to be a little bit more fun as well. I'm saying you can ask the serious questions at the start of the press conference to make, to get the story that you need to get the information that you need to get. But once we're 10 minutes into the press conference, let's just start throwing absolute random ones in there and just see what happens. See what people ask. I think that would be really good. Josh, what made Australian football fun for you this week?
Well, there's a few things to choose from. I'll go with something we haven't covered yet, which is Fabio Gomez just like fluctuating wildly between brilliance and being an absolute donkey. Like I just can't get a bead on Fabio Gomez as a footballer. And it was kind of summed up pretty well in the game against Adelaide United, where he did a bunch of brilliant things and a bunch of absolutely useless things, and then capped it off with like a clearly illegal penalty run up. We just went, oh yeah, that's fine. Just a little stutter step. He walks backwards at least one step, maybe two, and then goes to take it again after the goalkeeper's already on the floor. I enjoyed it. No one seemed to have a problem with it. Sydney 2, Adelaide 1.
Oh, and you know what? Good result for Sydney. And geez, Adelaide are in free fall at the moment. Actually, one of the things that made football fun for me this week was Anthony Caceres' outside of the foot pass to put in. I think it was Fabio Silva. Oof.
That was Fabio Gomez, and that's the one-on-one chance where he drew the keeper out, then didn't go round him, and then dwelt on the ball for so long that the chance just evaporated as the defenders retreated. And it was such a perfectly timed run as well. It's like he's brilliant. He's a donkey. Nobody knows.
Yeah, very maths. That pass from Caceres really, like, when I'm watching a game, I want to have at least 4 or 5 moments in the game where I just go, ooh, or like, oof, that's different level. That I like to say that from Caceres. Tell you what made Australian football fun for you this week.
This week, an Australian player at the age of 24 who had never played for the national team at any youth level, but crucially was actually raised in Australia and was not found on Ancestry.com, was called up for a senior national team. I found it so fun that Sophie Harding got called into the Matildas team. And this is someone who, in an interview that she did on Dubzone less than a month ago, I asked her, why is it you didn't debut in the A-League until you were 21? Why are you having your debut? Why are you having your breakout season at 24? She was very honest. She said, I wasn't good enough when I was younger and I worked on it. And I thought and I've had people in the industry. I don't talk to a lot of people in this industry, so I'm not going to name drop, but I did have people reaching out to me saying, I loved hearing that. I loved that someone, instead of being bitter about missing out when they were a junior Matilda at 17 or a young Matilda at 19, they went away, they listened to their coaches, they worked on it and broke through at the age of 24. And if you're not familiar with the Matildas, if you've never given them a go, we're going to pizzle Uzbekistan like 15-0, maybe 10. It was 10-0 last time we played them, but to be fair, it was like 18 years ago. I reckon Harding will play. And I reckon she will, be a bit of an overnight sensation for the Matildas. But even if this is just one and done, one cap or two caps, and then thanks and success, Sam Kerr's recovered and we go back to, more proven players, it is a great story. And it broke while I was driving, and it was one of those situations where I was that close to pulling over to write a tweet. But no, it was very fun. It was very fun, and also big congratulations, Pete.
Middle of the highway, someone passed you. Oh, you broke it down, mate. Do you need help? No, I'm just writing a tweet about Australian football. Hey, what made Australian football fun for me this week came via a tweet from Lee Broxham Facts, who mentioned us. He said, so there was all this talk last week about referee abuse and Roods has been disciplined for it, and there's a lot of issues with disrespect to referees at all levels. And by the way, I thought actually the referees did a really good job tonight in the victory Western United game. There's a lot of kind of line ball calls that they got correct with the offside calls, which when you saw the replay were very tight, but correct in the end. But I love big ideas. I love solutions. And this is Lee Broxham Facts' solutions. If any player is arguing with the referee unreasonably, they get a yellow and have their blooper reel shown on the big screen. So this would be fantastic. All right. Imagine for the next 2 minutes, the game goes on, but everyone is watching the big screen and just watching the absolute lowlights of any player. They're not going to argue anymore. I'm not arguing with a ref. They're going to play 2 minutes of my worst, performance ever on the big screen. It never happened. Another good idea that I saw this week was that the NBA All-Star game was a bit of a fizzle out, and the players aren't taking it seriously and not really being competitive is a big problem. And someone said the way to make it competitive is whoever loses, their DMs get leaked to the public. And that is a way to make NBA players go as hard as they possibly can.
NBA players try A-League commentators, mate. What an incentive.
Try basically anyone. But yeah, what do you guys think about the blooper reel on the big screen, Joe?
I love it. I mean, is our equivalent of that, is say if we upset anyone, do we have to play the audio of us interviewing Josh at the Veneto Club last week in front of everyone? That is a real tragedy that I don't want shown ever again.
Yeah. I mean, the thing would be, at least the blooper reel would be fun for the audience, whereas if we replay that interview, not so much fun. Josh, what do you make? It's
not fun for anyone.
Yeah, what do you make of the blooper reel idea?
I love it. I think you should play some derisory music as well alongside, because you get a lot of that in the American sports with the the organ players and things, and trying to put off the other team while they have the ball. What about a blooper reel for an opponent with like yakety sax or whatever underneath it? I think that'd be fun.
Teo, if you make a mistake in commentary, do we have to have 2 minutes of your worst commentary just sliced in there? If you go off on a referee, maybe that's how it should be.
It's I don't want to get into this. I'm just going to end up verbally subtweeting a whole heap of people that come for me on a regular basis.
All right. Well, here's another thing. Obviously, we get 15 million downloads a week, but I can see already that the live viewers is at an astronomical amount. I think we're at 2 million live viewers, and we thank you very much. And if you can like, comment, and subscribe, that would be very much appreciated. Rate 5 stars, do all the things that.
And that's the thing. Just because we have 2 million doesn't mean we don't need you.
No,
we need
100%.
Doesn't mean we can't have more. You're all welcome.
Yeah, exactly. And look, what do you want us to do? You have to start getting a betting sponsor and talking about parlays and things that I don't even understand. And the Mariners
to be fair, AFL
208.
season is just around the corner, and if MAFFS has to pivot to Aussie rules, we can bring in Debano, and me and Debano can cook. And Josh Parrish actually goes to more AFL press conferences than just about anyone in this industry. So if you don't think this is carrot and stick right here, forget leaking your DMs. If you don't like and subscribe, we're going to turn this into Aussie rules.
Josh, you should start asking ridiculous questions at press conferences for AFL, because really, who cares? Like, let them go for 15 minutes and then just throw. Like, next time you go on an AFL press conference, send us a message, and we, as MAFFS, both the MAFFS crowd and us, the MAFFS panelists, will send you the most ridiculous question, and you ask it, and then maybe you become like a bit of an influencer.
Could I stack the most AFL cliches in one question, just like wall to wall?
Incredible. That would be absolutely incredible.
Are you going to credit the boys for the way they've gone about it this preseason? They're really doing a lot of gut running.
Gut running? What is gut running? Sounds like you got diarrhea.
Popper was asked in his post-match press conference tonight about the foot candy that Daniel Arzani was selling. So there you go.
That's beautiful. So, how close were you to saying Costa Barbaros's his second goal was lovely? It was well crumbed at the goal face.
Well, I mean, we have had a player called Larissa Crummer, and the necessity to actually actively steer away from AFL terminology when you are talking about, Crummer near the goal is actually, you quite consciously bring it to the front of your mind.
Okay. So what I was going to say with the 2 million people tuning in, I feel like maybe a few people are tuning in because we did announce that we were going to have Taylor Swift on the show. And as we can see in the title of the show, it says featuring Taylor Swift. Now, got some bad news. Minutes before we went on air, Taylor did call and we had a good chat, as we always like to do. And she just said, guys, I'm really sorry. Can't do the show. I need to go back and review Melbourne City 0, Melbourne Victory 0. Unfortunately, I was working that night, so I didn't get to see it all. And she really wants to go through the game. I think she's doing her own XG map. She's looking at the field tilt, all that kind of stuff. She's a bit of an A-League nerd, let's be honest. She can go a bit overboard sometimes. Sometimes she can bring the vibe of the show down a little bit. So we didn't want to do it. But a few people did ask, is her name of her songs, are they subtle references, or maybe not so subtle references, to famous A-League moments? So,
sorry, who are we talking about?
Taylor Swift.
A-League fanatic. Can't say I'm familiar. No.
Okay, all right. Try reading.
Is this like some connection to like the Adelaide United guy that wears the big red wig? Like, there's lots of big A-League fans out there. But yeah.
All right. Taylor Swift songs. You tell me what conjures into the mind for you this in terms of Australian football. So, Cruel Summer, Joe. Anything with Cruel Summer?
When was Bucketgate? That seemed like it was hot.
That was summer.
That was pretty cruel, I think.
Is Cruel Summer? The 2006 World Cup. It was in summer, in Europe, and it had a cruel ending. Or maybe, we had a really good time. We had a lot of fun that 2006 World Cup. Maybe Cruel Summer was the 2010 World Cup, which was a lot less fun. Or 2018.
I think Cruel Summer is the title of every A-League women's fan podcast complaining about the heat policy, isn't it?
It's a good point.
Oh boy.
Cruel Summer might be a lot of those season with the Mariners. Hey, how about this? Blank space. Is that describing a lot of A-League midfields?
I think it's describing the void left in our hearts when the North Queensland Fury just departed the competition.
Oh, that's good.
It was Perth's ownership until, not very long ago.
It's also still the site of Western United's proposed stadium.
Speaking of Perth's ownership, by the way, I was just looking into the manager of Catania, which is Perth's sister club now, who they've taken to thanking on the socials already, which is great brand synergy there. And I'm not going to. It's actually Cristiano Lucarelli who manages Catania. You may remember him, a handful of Italy caps back in the day. Played for Parma and Livorno and Shakhtar Donetsk for a bit there, Torino. Anyway, I'm not going to read his entire managerial career because it's very long. But since 2017, it goes Catania, Livorno, Catania, Ternana again, Ternana again. And then back to Catania. So he's had 3 spells at Catania and 3 separate spells in a row at the one club. They kept sacking him and then rehiring him.
Hey,
so I wonder, what kind of managerial record the new or whoever comes in. Maybe Stadge is going to get sacked and then hired too.
I would say Stadge's garden is going to be impeccable because he'll have a nice long contract, but he probably, in true Serie A fashion, might spend various intermittent stints on gardening leave. Any connection to Italian football, the closer we get to bringing Sersa Cosmi to the A-League, I'm all for it, Josh. So as soon as we can get the Serie A managerial roundabout down under, sign me up.
A few comments coming in terms of A-League based Taylor Swift songs. Hirado makes the point, Cruel Summer is the Brisbane A-League experience with the weather and not being aligned with a daylight saving schedule. Yes, speak to your local politician about that. Joseph Ciccone says, you belong with me, clubs to every 32-year-old 7-club journeyman who last played in the Malaysian League.
That's
when
great.
when I hear you belong with me, I think Matt Simon and Graham Arnold. It was one of the great player-coach relationships. Is there any other player-coach relationships that you can think of? Maybe, I don't know, Tony Popovich, Josh Belante, someone where they just constantly, wherever the coach went, the player seemed to follow him.
Oof. Put us on the spot there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm putting you on the spot with a lot of these. I mean, Wizard of Woy.
I think look what you made me do is what Tony Popovich said when he was asked an eminently reasonable question about Daniel Arzani at the post-derby presser.
Wizard of Woy says Taylor's song "Nothing New" is about Steve Corring's game plan. Got him.
That's really good.
Hey, here's a question: who do you think? Because this was surprised to me. Who do you think has coached the most ever A-League matches?
Ernie Merrick.
Correct. And who was the longest serving A-League coach at one club?
Gee, was it great podcast here, fellas?
Yeah. Giving the audience time to think.
Hey, while we're on the path of trivia, can any of you actually name any of the 8 teams that competed in the secret tournament on the ocean tanker with Eric Cantona as the judge? There was one team that always stuck in my memory.
Triple Espresso or something? Was that?
That is one of them. Triple Espresso is one of them.
Wow.
Yes. Oh, man, I was pretty obsessed with that one. I can tell you who the player combinations were, more or less.
I've got them here if you want to. Yeah.
Oh, Thierry Henry played with Totti. It was Thierry Henry, Totti, and was
the third one's tough.
Nakata?
It was, yes, it was. Wow. So while you're on a roll, Stoll, who is the longest serving A-League coach at a club?
It was Andy Merrick, but I just it surprised me because he was that victory for so long. But I just thought, Popovich has been there for a long. But yeah, Merrick, the disruptor.
I was going to say Ricky Herbert at the Phoenix.
He was second. He was there for a long, long time. Obviously, coach turnover, and you know what? I hope there's talk about Giancarlo staying at Wellington for a long, long time, and I hope that happens. I hope he breaks the record because he's
speaking of Wellington. I have a bone to pick with the OFC. Not only did they schedule Women's Olympic qualifiers outside of a FIFA window, they put the final, so the Continental Cup final, at 3 p.m. on a Monday in Honiara in the Solomon Islands. And I'm thinking, what?
The traditional Western United MacArthur slot.
Was it Labor Day in Honiara? Like, what's the reason
you would hope?
Instead of scheduling it on a weekend, and never mind not in an international break, why did they schedule a Continental Cup final at 3 p.m. on a Monday? I'm at a loss as to why they did that. Anyway, that's my...
Maybe their football administrators are a bit like the state-based ones in Australia, and they only work 9 to 5.
Well, and then they would have got in the ear of the assistant referee and said, "You cannot put more than 3 minutes of stoppage time. We clock off at 5 p.m. here, and if we can't afford to go a minute over. Otherwise, there'll be no trophy presentation post-game. The players will have to do it themselves."
Oscar makes a point on the song "You Belong with Me." Popovic and Sporanovic. That's a great shout. Sporanovic even came out of retirement just to play for Popper, which if you know how Popper likes his preseasons, is a hell of a thing to do. I knew you were trouble. Is that Daniel Sturridge at Perth? Is that Danny Tiato at Brisbane Roar? Is that when Ange Postecoglou got rid of Craig Moore and some of the older heads at Brisbane Roar? Because he was like, nah, these guys are going to absolutely tank my team, and he got rid of him.
I think it's Jason Cummings, but there's probably a different Taylor Swift song to sum up his resurrection.
Bad Blood. Who's Bad Blood? Rudin and everyone.
Yeah. John Cosmina and Kevin Muscat.
Yeah, that's
of course.
There we go.
Throttle.
That's what it's going to be. Look, guys, is there anything else that you want to bring to the table this week? The Make Australian Football Fun Society has convened. Any other late ideas that you want to throw out there? Any Merrick-based trivia questions?
All right, the other 7 teams were called.
Oh, yeah, go on.
The One-Touchables.
Oh, that's an amazing name.
How is that not everyone's indoor team name? Yeah. Toros Locos. Now, this is the one that I always used
Crazy Bulls. MacArthur.
The one that I always used to refer to was Cerebrus, which was Edgar Davids, Lillian Thuram, and Sylvan Wiltord.
Cerebrus sounds like a Josh Parrish, highbrow Parrish.
Yeah.
Os Tornados, the Funk Soul Brothers, which was Seoul spelt like the Korean capital because it had Seoul Ki Hyun in the team. Tutto Bene and Equipo del Fuego, which was Claudio Lopez, Gaisca Mendieta, and Hernan Crespo. So basically a tribute act to Argentina in 2002.
Team of Fire. That means Equipo del Fuego. So obviously my Spanish lessons are paying off. Can translate them all.
I was going to say, while we're recreating iconic Nike advertisements, but in A-League context, can we recreate like the Brazilian team in the airport, but have them all on the bus on the way to Bandura instead of Casey Fields?
It's funny you mentioned that because Nat Tobin actually told us pre-show we didn't bring up the bus on Dove Zone, but she said once it was apparent the team was running late, they actually started doing all their pre-activation on the bus. So you would have had people in the resistance bands in the aisles of the bus doing all their stretching on the bus. And basically, we speculated about how it went down on the last MAFFS. Yeah, we were pretty much on the money. It's pretty much
it makes sense, doesn't it?
I didn't hear anything too contradictory to what we had simply workshopped in our own minds. So.
No, that's the MAFFS way. That's the MAFFS way. You always hear it here first. Look, I think we're onto something here. Next year, the A-League, we probably won't have a marketing budget, but still, we'll do it on the cheap. We're going to reenact the cage match. We'll get 3 players from all over the league, create weird names, make it all up. That'll be a lot of fun. We'll recreate the airport ad as well. We'll just have all the players.
All the teams will be named after Taylor Swift songs.
Yeah, we'll try and get Taylor's a good friend of the show. We'll try and get her to clear a couple of the songs, which I'm sure are not expensive at all, to use in the ad.
Don't use her masters. Use the other bloke who owns them. That'd be much cheaper.
Yeah, I don't think she has any problems with mastering.
We are so far ahead of the curve. The title of this podcast is Ambush Marketing and a Bait and Switch. If the true MAFFS edict is ambush marketing across the board.
Mate, we're the Ernie Merrick of the podcasting world, just disrupting.
We are the true disruptors.
Hey, look, that's probably enough disrupting for this week. Look, please tune in next week where I believe we'll have Ariana Grande as a special guest. You can guarantee that she never lets you down. But thank you so much, Joe Simon.
Thank you so much, Nick Stoll. I'll see you next week. I'll see you boys at the Veneto Club midweek. What a week to be alive.
Thank you so much. People say you're the Taylor Swift of A-League commentary. Teo Pellizzeri.
Absolutely.
Newcastle versus MacArthur on Sunday. I'll see you all there.
And Josh Parrish, thank you so much for bringing your highbrow tones and proper broadcasting voice to this pod.
Not like Teo, of course. No, I can't wait for Ariana Grande next week. I assume she'll be in full Wicked the movie makeup. We said we needed more magic tricks after the Asian Cup final celebrations, so perhaps she can bring that.
All right, excellent stuff. Look, tune in next week. Ariana Grande, Jay-Z, Beyonce, and Kanye West.
And Travis Kelce, as Shaz has pointed out in the comments.
Yeah,
And
Kanye
fellow
maybe Nick
podcast
Tabano.
show.
2004. Yeah, maybe Nick Tabano. Maybe Nick Tabano.
If we can't get anyone else.
Yeah. We'll see. All right. Thank you so much. Tune in next week and have a great week.